This is a very interesting clip. More and more people, as the attention grows on Israel, are getting to the core, the root of what's really going on with the Jews and anti-Semitism throughout history. This student asked Ben Shapiro, an Orthodox Jew, what is it about the Jews and their chosen people stuff, and doesn't that make them superior and supremacist, and what's all that about? Let's have a watch of Ben's answer, and then I'll give you my thoughts.
Hi, Mr. Shapiro. I'm Caesar. How you doing? So I was reading the Bible the other day, and I came across, sort of the idea that the Israelites, so Israel is God's chosen people. And I just wanted to know what you sort of make of that, because it says it very exclusively. Obviously, if you exclude Christianity, it gives that to like everyone else as God being God's chosen people. But in the Old Testament, it just says that Israel is God's chosen people. So kind of my question is, what is the world to make of all the other peoples that are not, according to the Old Testament, the descendants of Abraham?
So what the Bible means by that is chosen for what is really the big question. Right? There's a question that Tevye asks in Fiddler on the Roof. Says, for God, could once in a while you choose somebody else? Meaning, if you look at the history of the Jews, the idea of a chosen people is the idea that God exists in human history and that God actually acts in human history as shown by the events of the Bible. That's sort of the case the Bible makes. As far as the idea that the Jews are chosen, that doesn't mean the Jews have exclusive access to heaven. It doesn't mean that God doesn't care about other peoples. It means that God has chosen this one people as an example of a nation that he is going to hold to account for not following the ways of the Bible. I mean, that's the message of the 5 books of Moses and all of the prophets. But the idea is to be what's in the Hebrew, Mamlechet Kohanim v'Goy Kadosh, meaning it's supposed to be a nation of priests and a holy nation as an example to others. But again, that doesn't mean that in Judaism the ideology is that nobody else matters, that the rest of humanity is inferior, or anything remotely like that. In fact, according to Jewish law, the access to heaven is much easier for people who are not Jewish. I have to fulfill 613 commandments and routinely fall short. According to Jewish philosophy and thought, non-Jews only have to fulfill 7 basic commandments, not even 10, like 7 basic commandments that pretty much everyone is capable of fulfilling. And so, again, the idea that of chosenness, it doesn't mean like better. It doesn't mean superior. It doesn't mean that God loves you more. It does mean that God has a special mission for the Jews. That's what Jews believe. By the way, I think Christians believe that God has a special mission for Christians, and Muslims believe that God has a special mission for Muslims. One of the things about religious particularism that I have basically no problem with, and it's one of the reasons I don't really do religious doctrinal disputes, is because I have no problem with other people believing what they want to believe about themselves and their religious adherence to God. I really care about how they act in the world and how they treat other people.
It's a really good answer from Ben. One thing that I think many of us should reflect on is, why is it that many nations and religions have claimed to have a special chosen mission? Christians and Muslims, actually, these religions are actually, in many ways, if you think about it, just going according to what they say only through our path can you achieve salvation. That is pretty exclusionary. Judaism and the Torah never said that. The idea was we have commandments that we have to keep with us. We have a particular covenant with God. And non-Jews have, as he mentioned, laws to keep. But it's not exclusionary in terms of who can have a relationship with God and salvation and all the rest of it. So why is it that there's been a disproportionate level of persecution towards Jewish people throughout history? Why is it that whenever we talk about chosen people, it seems to bother the world so much when it comes to the Jews, but not other nations? You know the reason? It's not because they think we're arrogant. Lots of people claim to be chosen. The reason is because it's that the Jewish people have what to be arrogant about. Not that we are, but because they know deep inside that it's the truth. And that's what's going on with anti-Semitism. They resent it. They resent this chosen mission of the Jewish people. They resent it in 2 ways. Number one, because of the moral accountability that it's brought to the world, and that's what anti-Semitism has often been throughout history. By the way, I'm not saying this student has that, but I'm saying that's what's really going on. And then also they resent this particular relationship the Jewish people have with God. But as Ben rightly says, God choosing you doesn't mean the others are rejected. It just means that you have a particular job. If God asks his if a parent asks their eldest son to throw out the garbage, does that mean all the other kids are rejected? No, it means that he has a particular role for a group of people. Now, it happens to be there is a particular special kind of intimacy that God does have with the Jewish people, which is particularly special and unique, and that is in there. But it doesn't mean that other people can't achieve closeness to God, can't serve God. What's the point in being a light to the nations if there's no nations. Surely that makes the nations important as well. In some ways, they kind of are an essential part of the plan and end in a way, because no point being a teacher in a classroom with no students. So, I really like the fact that Ben didn't shy away from this, because we see this too much. And it's understandable that Jews try and shy away from it, because we've been persecuted for so long because of this particular role we've had, which we didn't choose, by the way. God chose it. We didn't choose it. But it's only by the world coming to terms with this reality that we'll achieve true peace, and the world will come to its ultimate destiny and potential. So this, if you're in any doubt, this is this is the root of the issue with anti-Semitism. I heard Mohammed Hijab, an Islamist in Britain who is very anti-Israel. He was caught on camera saying, my problem isn't really with Zionists, it's with Judaism, because they think they're better than us. And that's what they can't. It's so funny because the Islamists are all about supremacy and we're going to take over the world. And yet he's bothered by, and that's, by the way, what the whole anti-Israel cause is all about. We can't bear the fact that Jews are finally our equals with their own nation state. No, we want to dominate them. We want them to be dhimmis, to leave the land and just become the wandering Jew, or to die, quite frankly. It's only when the nations can get their head around the fact that the Jews have a role that was chosen by God to be his voice to the world and to teach them the commandments and his ways and his values. And the key thing is this, that if only people would, instead of looking at that through a jealous lens or a resentful lens, they could see that it's such a blessing. The Jewish people have within them a chosen people. There's a chosen people within the chosen people called the Kohanim, the priests. And we have a small percentage of Jews who are around today who are Kohanim, descendants of Aaron, who was Moses' brother, the first high priest. Do we get upset? Oh, we're not, how come we're not all chosen of the chosen? Why can't we all be like that? No, because we understand we've all got unique roles. In fact, there was a biblical character called Korach in the Torah who said we should all be the same. We should all be high priests. And the earth swallowed him up. Where the message is clearly saying this ideology, almost like a communist ideology, we all have this, everyone's the same, there's no differences. It's dysfunctional. It's not the way God wants the world, but also we all have dignity through difference. Us all having a unique identity means we all have something unique to contribute to the world. That's what Rabbi Sachs taught us. That's how he explained the Torah's vision. So it's a blessing. God says to Abraham, through you, all the nations of the earth will be blessed. Us having the priests who bless us, bless the Jewish people, we consider that a blessing. And so too, if the nations of the world can look at this Jewish people's chosen role through a positive eye and see this is opportunity for blessing to the entire world. As God says, through you, all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. But the rabbis of the Talmud were very clear. They said that the hatred of the nations comes from Mount Sinai. The Sina, which is Hebrew for hatred, comes from Sinai, they say. That moment God chose the Jews to be his light to the nations. The sooner the world can come to terms with that, the sooner, by the way, the Jewish people comes to terms with that, the sooner this world will be transformed into a world of peace, harmony, goodness, and godliness. Before we wrap up, I want to share something important with you. The entire anti-Israel movement is built on one central accusation, that in 1948, Israel stole the land, and ever since, Palestinians have simply been resisting. But what if everything we've been told about this story is untrue? What if the real history of 1948 shows not Arabs being forced out, but Jews, while seeking peace, having to fight for their survival against a genocidal enemy that willed its destruction long before Israel's re-establishment? Have a watch of the trailer for our new, groundbreaking and essential documentary entitled What Really Happened in 1948. And if you want to see the full film, just click the link in the video description. In 1948, the world witnessed the rebirth of the Jewish state, the State of Israel. A moment celebrated as a miracle of survival and self-determination after centuries of persecution and the horrors of the Holocaust. Yet for decades, this event has been twisted into a narrative of theft and catastrophe, with the so-called Nakba portrayed as Israel's original sin, where Jews allegedly stole Arab land and displaced innocents in a premeditated act of ethnic cleansing. But what if this story is fundamentally inverted? What if the cause and effect are the other way around? Not Israel aggressively seizing territory and Arabs responding in self-defense, but Arabs, driven by deep-seated hatred, rejecting the Jews' legal and historical rights to live in their ancestral homeland and waging a genocidal war long before Israel's re-establishment. In this JTV Plus documentary, we're going to uncover the unvarnished truth about 1948, the centuries of pogroms and anti-Semitic violence that set the stage, the Arab leaders' explicit calls for extermination, and the defensive war Israel fought to secure its existence. We'll challenge the pervasive lies head-on, showing how Arab rejection of peace wasn't about creating a Palestinian state, but about denying Jews the right to live at all. From the Nazi-allied leader of the Arabs in Palestine, the Mufti al-Husseini, to the forgotten occupations by Jordan and Egypt, when no Palestinian state was even considered, this is the story of a conflict rooted not in displacement, but in whether the Jews deserve to live in their homeland. Join us as we debunk the myths with facts, confront the historical record fairly but firmly, and reveal why 1948 was not an act of aggression, but a righteous response to annihilation. This is what really happened in 1948. To watch this JTV Plus documentary and access much more premium content, click on the link in the video description.